other way around. Very importantly, and going back to what I said about one of the reasons I think The Economist is so successful, don't ever feel that you should need to dumb down to be successful in this world. Consider our debates. The online debates that we run at The Economist are actually amongst the most successful of the things that we do. This is a screenshot that you're seeing of them here. Let me explain how they work. We select a motion, an Economist journalist to moderate, and we invite two expert guests from the wider world, one to propose our motion, one to oppose our motion. The guests deliver three statements, an opening, a rebuttal, and a closing. And throughout the event, readers pose their questions as well. They make their own statements from the floor, to which our guests regularly respond. It's what we in Britain would probably call an Oxford-style debate, but virtualised and done online. And we pick very meaty motions to discuss. These debates last a full 2 weeks. Recently we ran, "This House believes that untouched wildernesses have a value beyond the resources and other utility that can be extracted from them." We did, "This House believes that new measures of economic and social well-being are necessary for the 21st century economy." I'm going to take a deep breath for the next one. "This House believes that the loss of privacy from digitising healthcare will be more than compensated for by the benefits of increased efficiency." Not the kind of things that you expect to see flying around on Facebook and Tumblr and Twitter. And yet they work really well. They're excellent editorially, our readers enjoy them, and they're popular amongst our sponsors, who love, like we all do, to feel that they are really engaging with readers, creating experience, and nurturing a high-level conversation. I think, in closing, the success of these debates illustrates a common theme that runs through much of what I've said and much of what we've done in The Economist over the last year, and indeed much of what we'll do in the years ahead. That you'll find if you ask a lot from your community, you will almost certainly get a lot in return. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Zdaj sledijo vprašanja iz publike. Okay, zaenkrat ne vidim nobenih dvignjenih rok, zato si bom pač vzel to pravico in postavil vprašanje. Mark, a question for you. You said, be innovative, be ambitious, find your advantages. So, can you reveal what were the experiments that you make and you failed?
That's a very good question. What am I prepared to tell you about? That's really what you're asking. I don't think we've done anything that's failed. I think, interestingly, one of the things that hasn't worked for us, that is supposed to work for everybody, is the idea that big brands, when they're on Twitter, should be doing more to chat to people, to respond to requests. Certainly a lot of the big brands like Coca-Cola are starting to use their sort of Twitter feeds as a way to be sort of customer service, to respond to people who have particular queries. We've been trying to use our Twitter feed a little bit more like that. At the moment, much of what we do on our Economist feed is simply, on the single brand account at least, tweet out links to things that we've published. And when we try and do things that are different, when we try, for example, to link to other news organisations, as people would tell you you're supposed to do, or when we try and respond to things that other people have said to us, or when we try and retweet what other people have said, we often find that we're met with a flood of tweets from people who say, "I don't follow you to hear The Economist chat with people, I follow you because I want links to the things that you do well." So we tried to do a lot of sort of online events, a lot of online discussions through Twitter. We tried to do interviews with authors, all sorts of things through Twitter. And we realised that for our central brand account at least, that's not really what people want. And that we wouldn't have found that out unless we'd gone ahead and tried those different things. What we've done instead is that we've created, beneath that central The Economist Twitter account and the central The Economist Facebook account, we created a large number of what we call brand accounts, these sort of We have Econ Europe for European news. We have Econ Biz Fin for business and finance. We have Econ Culture for culture news. And those are each run by an individual journalist on those desks, and those people are encouraged and allowed to experiment a little more further. They have slightly smaller audiences, and those are places where we can try and be a bit more experimental with Twitter. So I think that's a long answer to a short question, but that's been the most interesting thing that I've discovered over the last 3 years, that many people, when they follow a big brand name, a big newspaper, actually mostly want to use it as an RSS feed.
Okay, thank you. Kakšno vprašanje?
Hello, Petra. We are wondering who is writing on Twitter, and are they writing on their own name, or are you using the Economist name? Because in Slovenia, actually journalists write on Twitter.
Yes, and indeed that is very common amongst most news organisations, and is certainly very common in Britain. So we decided that we weren't going to promote particularly the personal Twitter accounts of our journalists. That's the right decision for us, because we do still believe that our policy of writing and publishing without bylines is the right thing to do. It's not that we think our journalists are supposed to be anonymous, it's not supposed to be a secret who covers this or that. It's just that their names don't go in the paper. And we decided that it was probably, going back to what I said about working out what's special about your brand and translating that into social media rather than the other way around, we felt that we should maintain that policy of anonymity, I suppose, on Twitter. So we have myself and a couple of colleagues run the main @The Economist account. A lot of what we're doing is taking the words that have already been used by our journalists in the articles. When our journalists write articles, they get a chance to write a little excerpt. Our back end of our website has a space where journalists can write a couple of sentences that they think sum up the most interesting thing about that article, which isn't really shown anywhere, but we use that when we're creating our tweets. So it's partly my words, it's partly a group of my colleagues' words, and it's partly the words that go into the article in the first place that you'll find if you follow @The Economist on Twitter. The other accounts beneath them, those are not journalist accounts, as I said, they are particular accounts for particular sections of the magazine. They are each run by an editor there. They are fairly personal in that the editor of that section has complete choice over what they put up on Twitter and what they do with it. But again, that doesn't have journalist names attached to it. That isn't to say that I don't do a lot of work encouraging journalists to create their own Twitter accounts. Partly because those who do it actually find that they enjoy it, that they find it a very useful way of finding news, and that they then become more excited in the work that we're doing with The Economist as a company on Twitter. So I definitely spend a lot of time visiting journalists, explaining to them what I think they should do. I've encouraged a lot of them to create accounts. A lot of them have created accounts of their own accord because they want to know how it works and are excited by it. And many of them have many more followers than me, which I find personally very embarrassing, but I'm doing my best. Maybe some of you can help me, if that would be okay, by up my following counts. It's very pathetic to ask for followers, but please, follow me. Again, a long answer to a simple question. Yes, we encourage journalists to create personal accounts. No, we don't use The Economist as a brand to promote them. We have our own accounts to do that. And that strategy is working for us at the moment.
Še kakšno vprašanje?
How many people are posting on Twitter and Facebook? For us, how many of our journalists? Our central account @The Economist on Twitter and The Economist on Facebook, we probably have only one person whose job is to do that pretty much full time. There is also me, who does it occasionally, and there is a member of our marketing team who helps with it occasionally as well. So I suspect that's a team of 3, of which one is full time. We have shifts, so there is a shift that happens on Saturday, there's a shift that happens for an hour or two on Sunday. We are, as I said, quite rigorous and quite scientific about it, because that is the way that you grow a big following, by posting a little every day. But we take huge advantage of the variety of tools that are available out there. So we use clients, we've tried all the different Twitter clients, we've tried Hootsuite and Co-tweet, and all of the things that make it easier for you, that make it easier for you to schedule your tweets. So, for example, to just spend an hour queuing up a series of tweets that might go out every hour for the next few days. Those are the kind of tricks that you can use to make it much easier for you. And then we have around 12 or 13 smaller accounts. These are the Econ Asia, the Econ Americas, the Econ US I was talking about. And those are 13 different editors responsible for that, as a small part of the other work that they do at the magazine.
Kakšno vprašanje? Ja, pridem potem na drugo stran še.
Hello, Andrei. Do you have any kind of strategy to attract the older people, the older population who is not yet familiar with those kind of technology and new social media?
I don't think we need a particular strategy to attract those particular types of people, for a couple of reasons. The first thing is that I think on social media we are largely just trying to do the same things that we do in the magazine. Our strategy there isn't different. It isn't different kinds of content. It isn't different kinds of events or different subjects. It is exactly the same thing. I don't think I would feel comfortable to be sort of changing what we do or how we look or what we say, either to attract younger audiences or to attract older audiences. So I think the things that we do anyway are the things that are likely to attract those kinds of older audiences. As I said, those kind of debates and things, they go down well with our younger audiences, but I think they're the kinds of things that are already attracting those older audiences to those sites. And yes, I think there's a certain amount, I think that's happening anyway. As I said, I think the big change that we're seeing in social media is more and more older people coming online, over 50s, over 60s, over 70s. My granny friended me on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. I thought about saying no. Is that horrible? I considered saying no. I said yes. So I think those people are coming online anyway, and I think we just need to make sure that when they do, we're there and we're doing the kinds of things that are into them, the same kinds of things that make them want to read our magazine.
You mentioned before that for you it is not so important to be the first than to do the analytical part of the article. Here in Slovenia, definitely this is not the case. If you're not the first, you then follow the media, who is the first. And in, I don't know, 2 or 3 days, every media is full of the same content. How can we change this perspective? How can we persuade the editors, and not only the editors, also ourselves, that this is not the perspective we should follow, that we should think in other directions, so that the critical journalism is really what matters?
Thank you very much. That's a really excellent question. First things first, I would never tell you that that is necessarily what you should definitely do. That's just what we think has worked for us, and there might be other policies depending, on your particular situation that make chasing breaking news the right thing for you. The problem is that I think personally that the companies that make the most out of being the first to break news are the ones that will be fundamentally undermined the quickest by social media, because no news organisation, unless they're really doing a scoop, unless they're really doing investigative work, is ever going to break anything first anymore. They are going to see it on Twitter. It happens on Twitter first. So I don't know what you can say if you think that you're chasing the wrong strategy, but I think it will become pretty apparent pretty quickly as social media grows even bigger than it is at the moment. That breaking news is not going to be a particularly valuable place to be. Yeah, I think that's it.
You're in trouble now.
No, you're not. I just wanted to ask, how many tweets or Facebook posts are too many or too little? You said before that you don't have that much.
Again, there's no one answer. We sort of, every couple of months, will do a little bit more of an experiment. We will ramp up, we will ramp down, and we'll see what the effect is. Certainly, because our following is rising quite quickly, I think it changes quite quickly what is the right amount to do. When we were starting out, not many of our followers on Twitter, for example, had many friends or had very big networks of their own. So if we were tweeting a lot, people would notice that more quickly because there was less flying over their dashboard. So they would log in and they would see 11 or 12 tweets from us and they would say, this is definitely too much. Now that Twitter is a bit further on, there are more people who have much bigger networks who, if we tweet something, it just appears on their dashboard for a second and disappears off it. So as time has progressed, we have been able to post more and more to these networks. We're finding that we can post a little bit more to Twitter than we can to Facebook. And we're finding at the moment that we're posting anything between 12 to 18 posts a day on both of those networks. That seems to work about right for us. But it's a never-ending game to be pulling that statistics out and deciding what the right thing to do is in the future. And as I said, all that information is there, and it's criminal not to use it. It's one of the best things about being an online journalist, is the ability to see immediately how well something has gone down. You mustn't let that affect too much what you decide to write about, but I'm a bit of a stat head, and I would hate to write an article and then not know how many followers I had, how many people had read it, how many times it had been tweeted. So yes, keep an eye on the statistics, always pull them as much as possible, and if somebody in marketing or somebody in technology offers to help you with that, then say yes, please. Yeah.
If I refer to a question from the first row, how has the digital age changed the way you write in a printed edition?
How has the digital age changed the way that we've written in the printed edition? I don't think it has. I don't think it has changed what we write at all. In what ways do you think that it might? Or has the microphone moved on?
Yeah, the microphone has moved from left to right, as everything in Slovenia.
Do you think that any of your papers have changed the way that they write because of the internet age?
My papers did it several times in my career, so... no, I meant that actually you talk about Facebook, Twitter, social media, internet sites. There's a science on this subject, and still there's a printed edition. Did it remain unchanged or not?
Yeah, for us it has remained unchanged. When I say unchanged,
sorry to interrupt, how is that possible? You have like guys there working for 20, 30 years that have to adapt to a totally new culture, totally new way of thinking, and still keep the old way in print media. How is that possible to merge these two approaches?
I don't think our sort of weekly cycle of reading the news, of reporting, of analysing what's happened, and of producing a bundle every week has changed particularly. In fact, I think it's precisely because we haven't changed, because that is what we do. That's one of the reasons why we are becoming, I think, increasingly popular, because what we do and what we have always done is suddenly becoming a really good place for a professional and valuable news organisation to be, because everybody else who's down here, who's reporting daily stuff, is swiftly being usurped by the internet. So I don't think we need to change. I think the audience is coming from over here and coming towards us. And if our sort of daily cycle, if our weekly cycle has changed, it's that we are now enabling our journalists to produce more than they were, those who want to. We pretty much, when we launched our blogs online, we really just said anybody who wants to blog can. It turned out there were lots of people who'd been wanting to write about all sorts of things that they hadn't necessarily been able to get into the paper every week. Lots of people who wanted to cover new subjects that we hadn't been covering very well in the past. And that was really an explosion of creativity when we just said, if you have a great idea for a blog, create it and then write posts. And if you want, hire freelancers or find people who can help you write it. And so that is one way in which the sort of daily, day-to-day job of the print journalist has changed, I think, in that they are now, they have more opportunity and more outlet for them to write than just one weekly newspaper. So that's changed what they're able to do, but the job that we do every week, I think, has stayed pretty much the same, because that is becoming ever more valuable. It's the right place for us to be and the right place for us to stay.
Do you have any analytical tools for measuring financial impact, and what do they show of your presence in social media?
By financial impact, you mean have we made more money by being
Yes.
on the internet? We can see, yes, I hope that in this presentation I've shown that there is, if you want to boil it down to is there more money coming from being good on social media, the answer is yes, if only because at the moment we are getting more traffic sent to our website. And we are in the fortunate position whereby we have more advertisers than we have inventory. So at the moment, growing our website is a smart thing for us to do. And in that respect, our efforts on social media are an important part of that. So that, I think, is the main way that you could put your finger in the air and say, if you had to, that is exactly the benefit in money. And I can take those page views and I can do some maths and I can work out what the CPM rates and all the rest of it are to work out how much money that's made us. But I think there is much greater benefit, as I said, in the long run, in the fact that we are now out there every day, reaching readers that we would never have reached before, and reaching people who we would never otherwise, who would never have dreamt of typing in economist.com into their browsers. I told you a little bit about the kind of things that I see on Tumblr, which make my day whenever that happens. I often see people write, wow, I had no idea that The Economist would write this kind of thing. And it isn't necessarily that we've changed the kind of things that we're writing, it's actually that a lot of people are being brought to our stuff and becoming aware for the first time what it is we actually do. And I'm always keen to make sure that I've got some actual numbers to hand to say this is the quantifiable benefit. But I would absolutely want to stress that I think there is an enormous benefit in the sort of knowledge of people knowing who we are, what we do, and spreading with their friends their appreciation for it is very valuable too, in the long run.
I have one more question. Before you showed the graphic of your traffic on Twitter and Facebook, it showed growth, but there are some very high and very low points there. Do you know perhaps what happened that resulted in those high and low points?
That's an excellent question. Some of it is responding to things that we've been doing, so experiments with ramping up and ramping down the amount of things we do, the type of things that we tweet to. So some of that responds to us playing around with it. I said something earlier which maybe wasn't entirely true. I said that one thing that was good about social media is that it's no longer about algorithms, that it's about sharing. That's true to some extent, but as the sites like Facebook get cleverer and cleverer, they have algorithms of their own which they tweak. Facebook has an algorithm called EdgeRank, which they regularly change and which they use to decide exactly, whenever you log into the site, what content it's going to show you from all the possible things that you might have subscribed to. And we've seen, especially recently, that we've had lots of ups and downs in our Facebook traffic. We think as the result of all the things that Facebook are doing and all the upgrades. I don't know if many of you I'm sure a lot of you are on Facebook, but they've made a lot of changes recently in terms of where content appears. They've got 2 streams, have they got 1 stream? All that's changing. Twitter recently as well have started to implement this kind of thing. It's no longer just a question of if you tweet, your tweet necessarily appears on somebody's dashboard. It's getting a little bit cleverer now. So I think a lot of our ups and downs recently have come from these algorithm changes. And I guess we're playing catch up a little bit in that we are having to educate ourselves now about these slightly sealed boxes that the social media sites run to find out what things we can do to make sure that we continue to appear on people's dashboards. But as with Google, I think the long and short of it is that the most important thing that we can do, regardless of all this technical wizardry, is to write really good things that people really want to read and to maintain the quality of the utmost.
Hi, I'm Mirko. Do you notice any major differences between the audiences that interact with you, with your newspaper, on Facebook and on Twitter, for example?
I only have anecdotal things. I don't have any hard facts. Facebook tends to be a much younger and a much more casual audience. They are people, randomly browsing the web. Some of them are big fans of ours, but some of them have also just seen that somebody they know read a story once and flicked the like button to see, how it works. I think the reader comments on Facebook are certainly nowhere near the quality and the thoughtfulness of the comments that we get on our own website. Twitter seems to be very much a quite hardcore network. I'm told that of all the content on Twitter, some silly number like 3 or 4% of the users are creating 90% of that content. Twitter is full of these sort of nodes, these big influencers who have huge accounts. And there's a lot more people on Twitter who just register just to follow people rather than to participate. There's a lot more what we'll call lurkers on Twitter. So Twitter is a place where you can go, as I said, to really influence the sort of media types, I think. Whether they are journalists themselves, whether they are big brands like The Economist. I think Twitter seems to be a happier place for that to exist rather than Facebook, which is a much more casual audience. That said, Facebook at the moment delivers us considerably more traffic. But yes, it's definitely a big difference between them.
How about the age?
How about the age? Again, I don't have any numbers, but I would suspect that Twitter's age is older and Facebook's is younger. But the thing is, the moment I say something like that, it becomes completely irrelevant quite quickly, because these really are changing hugely swiftly. If you have to sort of make a choice about which site you should be on first, I would say go to Twitter. I think ideally you wouldn't, your organisation, have to make a choice. I think you would try and go out on both. But I think for a news company, Twitter is becoming swiftly the place where people share news. Facebook, there's lots of other distractions, whereas I think Twitter is really used for a news-hungry audience. And that's why, even though it doesn't seem to convert traffic quite as well, we're very excited about Twitter and we want to continue experimenting with it as much as possible.
Thank you.
I have two questions. First, do you get any hate speech with all the feedback that you get, and how are you dealing with it? And second, do you believe that people could eventually become fed up with all the social networks? Thank you.
Hate speech, that's a horrible word. Yes, so I think as soon as you open, I'm sure you all know from your own experience, as soon as you open up fields where any reader can leave a comment, you're going to get all sorts of things. Some of it's going to be extremely good, some of it is going to be pretty weak. I think we generally feel like our comments on our website in particular are better than the comments on almost any other news site. When it's bad, it's as bad as anywhere else, I would agree. But when it's really good, the level of debate, I think, is higher than anywhere that I've seen. And we're really proud of our community for that. I should probably talk about the moderation that we do on our own website. I sort of created a moderation policy, and I liaise I sort of manage the relationship with our moderators, who are a team of out-of-house specialists who are very good at moderating news sites, who moderate our site. And when I say moderate, I don't know what you are all doing for moderation, but we're report moderating. So we don't read any of the content at the moment that it's posted, but we respond to it when people alert us to it. So every single comment has a report button next to it. It comes to our moderators and they make a decision comparing it with the policy. And yes, you get all sorts of things come in, and the ideal is to get rid of it as soon as possible. And we're fortunate in that our community are very, very, very proud of the site, and they are very, very, very swift to report to us anything which they think is inappropriate or wrong or even just plain boring. And that helps our moderators to keep the site clean. And that's a system that seems to work for us at the moment, and as we scale we'll have to keep looking at that, because it's something that is very close, very important to us all. And your second question was, sorry, I've forgotten. I'm talking too much. And I bet you haven't got the microphone anymore, have you? Will people ever get fed up with social networks? Will people ever get fed up with the internet? I don't think so. I think it's probably here to stay. I think having a social layer across the web, I think is undoubtedly something that is, part of the web and is going to stay there forever. I don't think people are ever going to completely withdraw from the social element of sites. I simply think that there isn't a single bit of the life that you lead online that in the future isn't going to have some kind of social aspect added to it. And I think that almost all areas of online life could be improved by having the right kind of social layer added to it. I think people might become fed up with certain sites. I certainly don't think that it is guaranteed that Facebook will still be the site of choice in the future, any more than it was guaranteed a couple of years ago that MySpace was going to be the site of the future, or even Google for that matter. I think if we've seen one thing, it's that these sites can rise and fall very quickly, which is why if you're putting a lot of effort into social, you certainly shouldn't put all your eggs into one basket. I personally am a little bit concerned by the sort of rise in passive sharing. Are you familiar with this? It used to be that you could simply go to a website and click a like button or click a tweet button and share that with your friends. And by sharing it, it would be an act of recommendation to your friends. Facebook and a couple of the sites are now very keen for us to move to what they're calling passive sharing, whereby you opt in and then everything that you do on the site becomes a posting which is shared with your friends. So The Guardian launched something recently, an app on Facebook, some of you may have used it, where the moment you accept it, every single thing that you read, it creates notifications that go out on Facebook. And that's the kind of thing that I think people will take a look at and maybe may decide that it isn't quite for them. I think we're now reaching a stage there where a lot of people are going to actually say, whoa now, I quite like choosing to share articles with my friends. I don't much like the fact that everybody can see what I'm reading, and that even if I click the X to remove it from my timeline, there's a chance that I'll forget to do that, or I just don't like that. So I think maybe we'll see people start to hover about how much further they want to push into social and how much more they want it to share on their behalf. But is it going to go away? I'm afraid it's almost certainly not. I think it's here to stay, and I think it's actually good for the internet. And I think, as I hope I've explained today, I think it's really very good news for news.
Okay, we ran out of questions. On behalf of our audience, I would like to thank Mark. I think he deserves a big applause. Z občinstvom pa nadaljujemo ob 8. v Vetrinjskem dvoru, tule čez cesto. Podelitev novinarskih nagrad nas čaka, do takrat pa pol ure pauze. Hvala.
Jaz sem prej spustila kratkega, gremo zdaj do njega.